Nina G, and today is May 25th, and this is another edition to the Comedy Time Capsule. Today, I'm very excited because I have Aidan Greene with me, and you'll see why I'm so excited in just a second, as soon as you hear us both talk. And Aidan, hi, how are you?
I'm good. I've never felt under more pressure to stammer in my life than that intro.
I know, right? And so far we're both pretty fluent. So we'll see. We will see how it goes. I'm sure I jinxed us both.
I feel bad for somebody who was like, oh, I'm definitely going to watch that one because I've got a thing for stammering. And then we just let them down completely.
You know, all of the stuttering and stammering fetishists will be very mad if we're fluent. So, yes. So we'll have to work on that because we need all the hits we can get. So, Aidan, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I am Aidan Greene. I am a stand-up comedian. I am a software engineer. I am a screenwriter. I like to be things that begin with an S. And I am based in Dublin, which does not begin with an S.
Lucky you. Tell me how you got into comedy and how long you've been doing it.
So I think I've been doing comedy for about 9 years. Maybe 10. I'm not entirely. It feels like I've been in it for way too long. But I got into comedy. I had a friend who was doing stand-up for maybe 2 years before I started, and it's actually a really sad story why I got into comedy. So I'm not going to. I was having a sort of a mental breakdown, and I was at a very low point. But people kept on saying to me that I wasn't funny, and they always kind of insinuated that it was because I had a stammer. So I was like, you know what? I think I am, and I'm going to prove all of them wrong. It was kind of like when I came out on the other side of that breakdown, and I was away from those people. I was kind of like, no, I'm going to prove all these people were wrong. Now I still haven't, but I'm really trying.
Well, you're doing a hell of a job trying because you've been at the Edinburgh Festival how many times?
I have done 4 fringes so far.
Okay. And tell me just what is it like doing comedy? What do you how often do you do it? I don't know much. I have actually done some research on comedy in Ireland. There is a book that I got on bookshare.org. I know. And so I know a little bit about the history, but I want to hear what does the landscape of Irish comedy look like right now? Or before?
Well, yeah. Right now it's a steaming pile of ash, but so it's a kind of an interesting because I've done lots of comedy in other places. I've gigged in Albuquerque, I've gigged in Montreal, and the thing about Ireland is it's a small scene, obviously, because we're a small country, but we're very much kind of centered around all in one city as well. There is comedy elsewhere, but there's nowhere with the amount of shows that you would have in Dublin. So I'd probably say I gig maybe twice a week in the Dublin, which isn't actually that much. But I think because I have a full-time job as a software engineer, I don't probably actively gig a huge amount until it comes to this summer, and then all of the festivals are on, and you're doing normal club gigs and festivals, and then you go to Edinburgh and you do 80 shows in 30 days and slowly fall apart.
That sounds great. That sounds exciting.
It's really not. As soon as the Edinburgh Fringe was cancelled this year, I was kind of sad, but at the same time, I've never been so happy. Because because like every year at the Fringe I've had at least two shows, so like so last year I had two full solo shows, and they're like complete, well, obviously they're all about stammering, but they were two separate shows, and one was at 1:30 in the day and the other was at 9. And by the end of the Fringe I had lost, I'd say, a stone, and my mouth, one side was just covered in ulcers inside of it. Like I was just so worn down from just all this gigging and flying for my shows and everything. So I'll miss it because it's a comedy sort of boot camp, but I won't miss it just in terms of my physical stamina and not falling apart.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. And a lot of it is like you're doing your show, but then there's also all these other things going on that you kind of have to go to, or what's it like?
Yeah, you can be as involved or not as involved as you want, which I think is kind of the fun part of it. As in, I know people see a big part of it is trying to sell your own show, and if you're a bigger act, you don't have to because it sells itself. But I'm not quite a name act, so I had to fly for each of my shows for a combined 6 hours a day, and then each of the shows was an hour long, and you're walking in and out, and you're meeting people. But and then on top of that, as in, I'm not a big networker, because I'm just uncomfortable trying to schmooze. Not a big schmoozer. I'm not a big fan. I think a lot of people, when they schmooze, it can sometimes be they're only speaking to you because they think they can get something out of you. So I'm not a big fan of that. So I think it's but I think there's some people who are just good at that and are good at that aspect of it. So my Fringe might not be like somebody else's Fringe, which I think is the really interesting part. Like it's not the same for everyone who goes.
Mm-hmm. So you said that stammering, and also just so everybody knows, I think in America, people think that there is stuttering and that's more pathological, but stammering is this cute thing that British people do. It's like, but no, it is called stammering in the UK and in Ireland, and it's called stuttering here, just so people know what we're talking about.
Which I have had people almost fight me at shows when they claim it's a different thing.
So say more about that.
I was doing a show, and I think I have it recorded, but I was doing a show, and I asked, "Oh, is there anyone here who knows anyone who has a stammer?" And a woman goes, "Oh, my friend, she has a stutter." And I goes, "Cool, it's the same thing." And she goes, "No, it's not." And I was like, because I think I may have roasted her a little bit, because I don't know if this is the same for you, but I've got this really bad sort of a habit where if somebody else makes a mistake in their speech, I'll just roast them completely because I'm like, that's my thing. I think, what's your excuse?
I love that. That's great. No, I don't do that. In part because I don't notice it. But there is that thing of like, it was like, oh, that person is talking around a word. I wonder if they're one of us. And I get very excited. And then I find out that they're not. Just like, I don't know if you know who Bobcat Goldthwait is. He's a cop in the U.S. I hoped so badly when I was in middle school that he stuttered. That was my fantasy. But it wasn't true. He eventually dropped the so he did not.
It was only for jokes, which somehow makes it feel so much worse.
I know, yes. And that's a whole other thing that we could get into. But I do want to tell you that you have my favorite stuttering, stammering joke out of everybody. My favorite one. Do you know which one it is? I think that I've told you, but I don't know.
Was it the King's Speech one?
That one, yes. Okay, can you say it? And then I'll say why I love it so much.
Okay. This, I will say that this joke does really well in Ireland, but does not do well at the Edinburgh Fringe, and people are about to find out why. Uh, so I've always been looking for somebody. I watch a lot of TV shows and films. I said I have a degree in screenwriting, and I've always tried to find somebody who's just like me, because stammers in TV shows and films, they are always the punchline, that they are never the start. Okay, so I watched and I watched. And I finally found it. Okay, I finally found the King's Speech, and I couldn't believe it, because finally there was somebody in a film who was just like me. I could not believe it. He was the main character from an Oscar-winning film that was also a Nazi sympathizer.
That's my favorite. And it's my favorite because, I mean, it's so Irish, first of all. But it's Irish, not necessarily in the hate or the busting of balls of the UK and the monarchy, but also taking the piss out of something that everyone loves. Because in the US, stutters were like, oh my God, the King's Speech is the greatest thing ever. And Americans were like, this is the greatest thing ever. And to just critique that a bit, I think is great.
Yeah, it is. It's a weird point of contention for me, that film. And I don't know if it's just me being, like, why should we care about an English king? I don't know if that's it, but I have kind of rallied against it more than maybe I should.
And so, say more about why you are rallying against it, aside from him being a Nazi sympathizer.
Well, I've actually, and this is something I was going to contact you about as well, because I'm working on something. I don't know what form it will, it's going to end up in. I don't know if it's going to be, like a long form sort of YouTube video, or I don't know if it's going to be something else. But I've been working on what I call a definitive ranking of all of the stammers in pop culture. And it's something I've actually done before. I once did a sort of, there was a thing we had here in Dublin called the Head Stuff lectures. There was kind of like a comedy lecture. And so I did a ranking of all of the stammers, but all I could do was 10. So I think now I've got maybe 6 tiers of stammering characters. Is it King George IV? Yeah. So anyway,
my history.
The king from the King's Speech is actually my second top tier. It's not a top tier character, and I've not watched the film in a long time. Perhaps you can speak to this more than me, but a part of it, I think, is because the goal of the film. Or his goal in the film is for him to not stammer anymore. Like, that's kind of like the goal. Yeah. Whereas for me, what makes a stammering character good in a film is when it's irrelevant. Or when it's never about for them not stammering anymore, because like that's not really an achievable goal. And then at the end, again, it's been a while since I watched it, but are we supposed to go, like, perhaps he accepts himself, but he does his final speech and he doesn't stammer at all. And like, I think a lot of people watch it are like, oh my God, yes, he no longer has a stammer. Like, I don't think that people really got what the message of the film, I think, was supposed to be, is that he had accepted it, and it wasn't really important whether he stammered or not. But at the end of the film, it really felt like it was important that he didn't stammer.
Well, and at the end of his speech, the therapist says, well, you kind of stuttered on that one word. And then King George was like, yeah. And I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm putting my own cultural interpretation on this. But he was kind of like, yeah, I wanted to show everyone that who it was, kind of like King George was keeping it real. So there was that, but like other, if you don't stutter, it went over your head.
Yeah, again, I think I should rewatch it, but I think, as in, I don't know if you'd agree with my top pick here, and I might be spoiling it, but as in, who would you think would be in my pantheon of stammering characters? Like, who would you believe would be the ones that I really think are the best?
I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say Porky Pig.
Porky Pig is incredibly low in my ranking.
Okay.
However, I do have another stammering pig, which is in my top tier. Piglet. Piglet's incredible.
Because
first of all, it's not you, because often, as you know, stammering is used as a sign of weakness. If a character is a stammer, is to show that there's something wrong with them or they're cowardly. Piglet as a character is a really brave character. Piglet also has a group of friends around him. Piglet's male in it, isn't Piglet?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the Passing Twice, which is it is a group of queer people who stutter in the U.S. They have adopted Piglet as their mascot because they feel he is both gay and he stutters.
Excellent. Yeah, so as in, like, I feel as if Piglet, just in terms of, it's not having like a supportive group of people around a character like that, I think is great. I think the stammering not being used as something like this is what's holding Piglet back. And I think it's just a positive representation. You know, it's not as in I have found, and I've been digging and trying to find more and more, and I've been trying to like watch back and all these films and shows and see these characters, and just like in general, like anytime you see a stammer, it's normally a joke, or it's, to show you something's wrong, or it's a fake stammer, because fake stammers are way too popular.
Well, and that's why, like, I don't know about you, but people think that I'm faking my stuttering because it doesn't sound like a shitty actor.
Yes, that is, I think as well, there is a problem with the way people stammer in films and TV. Like, in general, and I do understand that everyone stammers in their own way. Like, there's not one way a stammer sounds, but it's like everyone literally heard Porky Pig and was like, that's a stammer. Like, this. I also really enjoy, I'm sure you're aware of the story of, like, the guy who played Porky Pig.
Yeah, and wasn't he a stutterer and then Mel Blanc took over? Was that it?
But the reason that they fired at him was because he stammered too much. He was too good at his job and they fired him. Like, this is, I rally extra against Porky Pig because of the days. And I'm like a Space Jam super fan as well. And I'm like, no, Porky Pig, you're dead to me.
Porky Pig, you're dead to me. I love that. So who is your top tier? Is it like Rocket Science?
Rocket Science for me is the perfect film. Rocket Science, in terms of films with stammers, it's just because it's a film very much about stammering. So, like, in my top tier, I have it chapter 1. Chapter 2 is really bad for stammering. Like, it's like they forgot everything that was good about stammering in the first film. But it's incredible because it's only referenced once, and it's by the clown. And I'm like, I'm gonna let that pass. But it's not. I saw some people complaining about it recently online because when he did his big speech, he didn't stammer. But I actually found that authentic because like when I'm like really performing, like when I'm really, like I'm on stage or something, I don't really stammer at all. Or if I'm like angry or worked up, I don't stammer so much. So for me, that was kind of real. But in Rocket Science, what was great is at the end, the scene where he busts in, and this is going to spoil the film for everyone, but the scene where he busts in to where the debate is on, and he's going to do his big speech, and he just can't get it out. That for me is perfect, because afterwards, he still feels as if I achieved what I wanted to achieve. And it's not like he suddenly didn't stammer or anything. He still stammered the same amount, but he had accepted it. And it's the kind of same as the King's speech, at the end, like he accepted it, but it didn't come with this thing where people, to think, oh, well, he's fine now, like he'll never stammer again.
Yeah, well, and I don't know what your response was, or what people's response to you was after the King's speech, but I had somebody come up to me. He was like a doctoral student, so smart guy, came up to me and was like, why can't you stop stuttering like the King in the King's speech? Like, can't you do those things like rocking on your feet? Can't you do like the and I'm all he wasn't cured. So yeah. Did you have that kind of response too?
Yeah, but I'll be perfectly honest with you. Even without that film, I get that crap a lot. I think that film just kind of, I think the kind of person who does that often doesn't need a film. I think it just brought a few more like weirdos in, like a few more like weirdos were emboldened to be like. I think that my favorite, and this is going to sound really bad, my favorite of my own jokes is where I talk about people walking up and like, so I've never stammered in my life, okay? So I'm kind of the expert on not stammering. And I think that that's the way people approach you. People are, like, well, I think I know because I don't have it. Like I don't stammer, so I know how to not stammer. Like people seem to think that they know more than the person who's like lived with this for 30 years of their life.
What is the strangest thing that anyone's ever told you to not stutter?
Oh, strangest. Yeah. See, I think I tend to focus on the ones that are actually more annoying than straight. Like I really hone in on the people who say things like relax. Like that's or like, oh well, I know somebody and they have a stammer, but they're fine when they sing. Like those are the ones that really, I don't think I've ever really had I'm sure you have, because I feel as if because I'm a man, people might also be less inclined. People might also think, well, he's a man, so I think he'll be okay. But for you, that they're like, well, she's a woman, so she needs to hear my opinion.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it, because I have had a number of things, but my favorite one was after a show once, and this is in my act, but I'm going to tell it like it's not in my act. After my show once, and it was a very small, intimate show where, I raked people who make fun of me over the coals. This guy, and he was with women, which was extra fascinating. He came up to me afterwards, said that I stuttered because I'm having the wrong kinds of orgasms. And I asked him what he meant, and he thought that anal sex would clear this out. And the women who were with him were like, didn't you see her act? Like, she's totally gonna put this in her act now. You're an idiot. So the girls had me. I didn't have to say anything, but that's the weirdest thing I've had. But I've had other strange things too.
Yeah, I certainly have never in my life had anyone say that anal sex was the cure for my stammer. But yeah, no, I do, and I think it was because I saw a video you posted once, and it was you and another woman, and it was like shit that people say to stammers. I think it was something along the lines of it. And as I was watching, there was a load of them like, yep, oh yeah, I get that. And then they suddenly got very gender specific. And I was like, oh, this is a whole side of this that I don't have to deal with at all. Like, this is, like it's me being like, well, I have this disability, but I also have a certain privilege, which means that I don't feel, I suppose, the full brunt of negativity around it. So I'm really just here trying to brag about my privilege. But this is me just be like, I'm fine.
Well, and then also in that video, Gina, who is Black and Chinese background, she once someone at a conference, at a stuttering conference, came up to her and a bunch of other Black stutterers and said, it must be so hard to be Black and stutter, and then expected them to educate him about that experience during happy hour and didn't even buy him a fucking drink. So that is another whole aspect that us as Caucasian white people don't have to deal with either.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I guess in a way, and this is going to sound bad, and I'm very aware, but there's some of the things that I don't get to put in my act. That's what I'm missing out on. Like, nobody's hate criming me bad enough. That's my complaint.
Yeah, no, and that is no, it's my gender specific stuff is a good 10, 20 minutes in my act. So you are missing out there. I do have to say. So I wish we could switch bodies for a day and then you could collect those. So one thing that I do have to ask about films, because I got some issues with this one. What about the one that came out of Ireland that won the Academy Award for the short? What do you think of that? It's either Stutter or Stammer or something like that.
Would you believe I have never seen?
Oh, okay. Respect.
I don't even know like the story. Like, I don't even know what it's about.
It's about a guy who wants to date this girl and he stutters here, but he doesn't stutter here. So a lot of it is up here. Like you hear his thoughts that are totally fluent. And then he sees this girl online and then they meet and she's deaf. Ha! She's deaf and he knows sign language. But the thing is, it's like you have somebody like, and they met on Facebook. So you have someone who is hiding his stutter and you have somebody who is hiding her deafness, and no deaf person who signs is hiding their deafness on Facebook. Like, you have to be hella self-hating to do that. So now you have these two disabled, self-hating people in a relationship and they think that it's like going to be the fit.
Oh my God. This is weird for me because I've been working on a sitcom about stammering, which I'm sure you also have at some stage as well. But it's I was kind of working on one particular I wouldn't say episode because I've actually kind of written some of them as shorts, but it's I talk it out beforehand, because a thing with this character is they are self-hating Stammer. Like, their goal throughout the whole thing is hiding it. Like, they're just trying to get by and like trying to hide it. And obviously, as you know, that just leads to things getting worse and worse. Like, that never works out. But I kind of had this a conversation in the script over whether or not this character should say in their online, on their bio on a Tinder or whatever, that they have a stammer. And I kind of have a non-stammering character arguing against it, which I feel as if I feel like he wrote that film. I feel as if it was like the non-stammering character. Like, it was. So, like, did the people who made it have stammers?
No, not that I could find. So the actor didn't. I didn't find anything about the people who created it. When they won the Academy Award, they thanked Irish people or Ireland and not people who stutter. It's like the stuttering thing was like not integrated in with anything.
Yeah. As in, and I think it kind of comes back to what I think makes the stammering character really, like really amazing is if they're kind of, if you see a life outside of stammering, like if it's not, as in like, like that is, the thing I love in it is it's not relevant. It's a thing I really enjoyed about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes, that is my favorite stuttering film.
It's incredible. As in because, and what I always enjoy, and it's a question I ask about it a lot in my shows, is I ask, okay, I ask if somebody has seen it, and then I ask, did they notice that the main character had a Stammer? And I'd say it's 50-50 people say no. And that and like, first of all, I always roast anyone who says it's my favorite. I love roasting completely able-bodied people when they don't see a disability. Love it. It's incredible. But as in, I know a lot of people who saw it and had no idea he really had a stammer at all. Like, that's just, for me, that's what's good, is when people just aren't really conscious of it and are taking it in like this is a normal part of their world, which it is, except a lot of the times in films. For instance, if you're Adam Sandler, it's hilarious, apparently.
Right? Because he just keeps on doing it over and over and over again.
That's like a big, because like I've never seen Billy Madison, so I found out there was a scene with the guy with the stammer. I was like, I'll watch it, and I'm like, okay, another Adam Sandler joke about a guy having a stammer. At least this time that the joke is more that Adam Sandler's a bad person, but it doesn't make up for all of the water boy.
Yeah, no, and that's where he brings it in a lot, and that's where, I mean, are the American films worse than the Irish films on stuttering?
I don't really know of any Irish films that have any. It's not. I feel as if almost all. I'm going to whip up my list here and have a quick look, and I'm sure you already know, but I've been like very much trying to compile
and there is somebody there is a guy in Belgium who is doing this work, and I'll connect you to.
Oh my God, that would be incredible.
His name's Eric, and he's doing a database and having people review films.
Oh my, so this, okay. Well, so I have my, in my top tier was all of the ones I said, but I have a few, and maybe you can speak to one or two of these, because I just don't know. Okay, there's a character in all 5 seasons of all 5 seasons of Ali of all 5 seasons of Ali McBeal. Have you seen this?
I never got into Ally McBeal. I was in grad school, so I didn't watch TV.
Is a good lawyer, but he will sometimes in court, when he can't say things, will sing.
Okay. And that's one of the advices that we oftentimes get, is just sing it out, which is
that's as in that's and it is, and I will give you credit. Like, it is like, I don't stammer at all when I sing, but I don't know why people assume that we all live in a musical. I don't know why people think that that's a normal solution to a problem.
Yep. What's your other ones?
Okay. There's one of the weirdest ones, and I remember seeing this years ago. I'm being so taken back, and I haven't had a chance to rank it. It's a film called Inkheart, based on a book. And so there are these characters in this universe. I think it's Brendan Fraser is the main character in the film, and they read out things from like a book, and those things become real. So like, these are very valuable people in this world. They can like read out, and then we had 500 guns, and then suddenly you have 500 guns. But one of these characters has a stammer. And so he is responsible for a woman who has no voice, for a character who has a distorted face, and another one with a limp.
So he's kind of like the king of the misfits then.
Yes, but he's like making these. So because of his disability, he is creating other disabilities. It's very weird.
Well, it's similar to like the James Bond villain. It's like whatever disfigurement or whatever disability that happened to them makes them bitter and then wants to.
Yeah, this is actually not a bad character though. He's been forced. Yeah, so he's been forced to like read. I think he's killed, but he's been forced to read these things. It's not to the extent of 102 Dalmatians. I don't know if you've seen this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Cruella de Vil's henchman or driver. He has a stammer, but then at the end when he turns and helps the good guys, his stammer goes away.
Of course, because it's the mark of something bad. That's why.
Yeah. So
if the character changes, then the stammer goes away.
So I don't know if that, for me at the minute, it's trying to rank all of these into like a tier, because is that worse than say in a Porky Pig or in the Water Boy? Like, is that worse? Because it's not that we're laughing at them; it's that we're saying that this person has a stammer because they're bad.
Yeah, no, and I think when there is the moral model of disability that says that it is the marker of something, that is a character flaw, that is a curse from God, that they have to learn a lesson from it. It's not neutral. And my whole thing is that stuttering, I got brown hair, and I stutter. It's not that it has any value in my life other than the discrimination that I experience in the world. And so, yeah, for me, I prefer Porky Pig over anybody who dies at the end of the film who has a stammer, because a lot of them die from suicide, from murder, from some tragic thing.
Yeah, that is that's the but now where would those rank against a fake against a fake stammer? Because for me it's like they're saying, first of all, like, I'm faking it so that you will think that I am stupid or I am unapproachable or I am like
Glee, right?
Is that better or worse?
Well, and you've seen the show Glee, because that's what they did. Pluck Glee. That's all I have to say.
That's I'd say a 10-minute based on an Edinburgh Fringe show, all of that, and I broke it down because like the fact that she aligned herself with somebody in a wheelchair, and then told him, oh, I'm faking this because I'm trying to push people away. Like, she said that to his face. She said, I'm faking a disability to push people away, to somebody who is in a wheelchair, who unfortunately was played by a completely able-bodied actor. But I've seen that because I was very into that show. Like, I can get very caught up in pop music because it's fun and it's infectious. And that was a show which was, here's just loads of pop. And then I saw this character, and it was, like, it's not my favorite model, which is just, here's a normal person who has a stammer existing in this world. Like, it was her thing. Like, it was making her exceptional in a way. But then to just pull the rug, because, that show, it also did base its story lines on what songs they had a license. So, that they didn't really stick with very definitive characters. It was often just, well, these are songs we can use. How do we like almost wrap a story around it? But for a show and like a producer who made the show, who's normally very good with everything. Ryan Murphy has made a lot of really good things and a lot of very inclusive shows. And this was him just just I don't even know the metaphor. Here's him just dropping the ball. Here's him spitting on the ball as he throws it in her faces. I don't know what a metaphor is for that. But as in I also rag on the first of the Harry Potter films, and obviously the book as well. But like how he states, well, people will think I'm innocent because I have a stammer in paranormal fear as well. He fakes his stammer so that they'll think he's innocent. It's a kind of a tough road. Like it's a weird plot to put in a film. I think like it's I feel as if it's the person who wrote it didn't have the skill to make a character subvert your expectations in like another way. Like they didn't have the ability to write a character who you could believe was something else. They had to be like, well, here's like they essentially have a crutch in their way of creating a character, instead of actually just writing a character who is believably innocent until proven otherwise.
Have you seen the movie Change of Habit? Because that is my favorite stuttering film.
No, I have. I'm actually going to write it in my list right now.
Okay.
What's it about?
It is Elvis's last film. Okay, so it's an Elvis movie. Okay.
Oh my god.
And Elvis plays a doctor in a socially economically poor area. So he's like the cool white guy in the neighborhood where he's the doctor, and then he also goes to the Catholic Church and he does songs, but they're like hippie songs because it was his last film. And Mary Tyler Moore plays a nun, and the nuns have to go into the ghetto because they gotta save people. But the twist is that they aren't wearing habits, so it's called Change of Habit. And Mary Tyler Moore is this speech therapist who works with Elvis, and they do a number of things. But there is a girl in it that has autism. She's like 8 years old, and they just can't reach her. And Mary Tyler Moore and Elvis cure her autism by Elvis just loving her and just hugging the autism out of her. So there's that. And then there's a person who stutters in it, who she sees in therapy, and he holds a knife. He's all, knife makes me feel powerful. And then he attempts to rape her and kill her at the end of the film because, stuttering. So it is a horrific film in terms of every disability, but there is a great scene at the end where Mary Tyler Moore is in her habit because everybody knows now. And then Elvis is up on the church altar singing, and she looks at Elvis, and she looks at the Jesus on the cross, and then she looks at the saints, and then she looks at Elvis because she has to choose between Elvis and the church. So there's so many wonderful aspects about it that are awful.
Oh my God. That is one of the wildest rides I think I've ever been on. Just in terms of like I'm scared to watch that film. I'm scared. I will
send it to you because the whole thing's online. So I'm very excited to hear your thoughts on it. Okay, so before we move on from stuttering, I want to know, is there a difference between because you have performed internationally, Canada, Scotland, Ireland, and the US, is there a difference how people respond to your stammer based on where you are and in your act?
I think as in, like, in America, I've only ever done one show. I did my full show in Albuquerque, and then I did the club scene in Montreal. And to be honest with you, it was Canada, so everyone was just very lovely and respectful, and like, didn't interrupt me. I would ask a question, and there was like, respond very politely. But like in Dublin, I gig to a lot of international audience, and like, I think in general people are pretty okay. Like, people are pretty okay, and I think I've got a very interactive act where I try and involve the crowd very early on. Like, I'll ask them questions. Does everyone know what stammering is? Like, has anyone got any questions? Anyone know anyone? And like, that's often where like I get some of my best jokes. I find somebody will say something and they'll be like, cool, like that's a really interesting idea, or that's a funny thing. And it was but then obviously every now and then you'll get the like, you will ask, oh, does anyone here know somebody with a stammer? And somebody go, no, or somebody will say, yeah, I do. And like, who isn't it? Like, Peter. And I tend to have like a good put down for it. But the only time I've ever been shocked by what somebody has asked was, I was doing a show and I said, is there anyone here who's any questions? And there was a very rambunctious young woman up the front on her own. She was from Chicago. And she asked me, do you stammer in sex? And I said, I am not a vibrator. But I think, and this is coming back to what we were talking about before, I was like, why would somebody even ask that? That's literally a plot point in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes. And I have a joke in my act, but it's based on an actual thing where one of my friends, he was a virgin at the time, 23, seeing a therapist. The therapist told him that once he starts having sex, that he's going to be cured. And I'm sure that the therapist based it off of that fucking film.
Oh my God.
And then my tag on that is that's like a paleontologist quoting Jurassic Park, or a marine biologist, citing Jaws. That it's that kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But and that's why these images are so important, because that's what people base their shit off of.
Yes. Yes, which is, again, and I know I'm really hammering, this, like hammering this home is, this is why Piglet's incredible. Piglet has a group of friends who are just like, no, Piglet, you can do it. Like, that's what, like, if that had been, as in, the only stammering films I saw when I was growing up was ones where it was shameful. So like The Water Boy and things like that. Like, I saw The Water Boy maybe 20 times. I rewatched it over and over. So I was like reinforcing this negative thing about myself over and over by watching this film, because everyone's like, this film's hilarious. And I'm like, yeah, sure makes me feel happy.
Yeah, totally. No, I think Adam Sandler owes us, like, what's his name? Michael Palin has this Stammering Institute. And I think in part it's because it's penance for the role in A Fish Called Wanda. I think Adam Sandler owes us big time. So
I will say, I accepted his apology in Uncut Gems. That film was so good. I was like, I'm fine with this. You can do whatever you want. Uncut Gems is one of my favorite films I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, and I really respect that he has given so much, and I think it came from a place that he was trying to connect, and So, you know, like, and that's also where's the humor coming from? Where is the intention? All of that plays into it. And I think when there isn't that link, when it's just a very dry, let's make fun of this thing, it comes from a different place.